If we are ever going to get back to the old America, that's got to be the Democrats' part of the bargain. Stop coming up with radically new and often terrible ideas, and then in the next breath, insist there be no debate about any of it. That if you don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5. Isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say.
On the latest episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, the comedian delivered yet another blistering takedown of the left's fixation on woke fantasies. As America's future hangs in the balance, the divide between left and right has never been wider, and it's still growing. Maher argues that if the country is going to live up to its founding promise, the left has to abandon its woke crusade. His message was blunt, unapologetic, and impossible to shrug off. Let's break it down.
As it is so late in the game, let's just go right to the granddaddy of bargains now. The left will seriously quash all their loony woke, and the right will stop the slide into autocracy. That's really the only card left to play.
I'll get back to the clip in just a moment, but I need to be clear. I'm firmly with Maher on this. If the left truly wants unity, it has to finally loosen its grip on wokeism. This isn't about silencing progressive voices or shutting down debate. It's about acknowledging that this radical ideology is dividing the country, not bringing it together. That said, the right isn't blameless. No side gets a free pass. But as Maher makes painfully clear, a significant share of today's dysfunction flows from the left's refusal to compromise or course correct. And in the next clip, he lays out exactly why that matters.
The basic problem we have in America is conservatives think the liberals are insane, and they're not completely wrong. Now, I don't think most liberals are insane, but neither do they make it clear they disapprove of the ones who are, and their cowardice in not marginalizing their own crazies has been their downfall. I couldn't get Neil deGrasse Tyson, a genius scientist and preeminent scientific voice in the media, to agree that it was ridiculous for Scientific American and The Atlantic to be claiming that separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. Actually, it makes perfect sense.
Maher throws down the gauntlet and doesn't hold back. In his view, the woke left has completely lost its grip on reality, irrational, untethered, and drifting deeper into delusion. What makes it worse is that even their so-called intellectual class, the scientists, philosophers, and cultural commentators, appear to have abandoned reason in favor of ideology. Common sense hasn't just been ignored, it's been tossed aside and replaced with a rigid set of dogmas that collapse under even minimal scrutiny. You listen to their policies, their arguments, their moral crusades, and nothing adds up. Nothing feels grounded in the real world, and yet they always manage to spin elaborate justifications, twisting logic into knots to defend what should be indefensible. That Maher's point lands with force. When an entire movement trades reason for fantasy, the outcome isn't progress, it's chaos, draped in the language of virtue.
And there's a lot of stuff like that on the left. And when conservatives see it, they say, I'm sorry, we're just not going to go along with reinventing society, often pointlessly, even if we have to cancel democracy to do it. That's what they're saying. They see gender as only a construct and sex is assigned at birth, and they say, we're not doing that. Transing kids by self-diagnosis with no age limit, no parental notification, and no acknowledgement of social contagion, not doing it.
Think about this for a moment. How can anyone seriously claim that gender is merely a social construct when biology, science, and basic observation clearly show that men and women have distinct traits, characteristics, and natural differences? These differences aren't imagined. They're real, obvious to anyone willing to look at reality honestly. Yet the woke left insists on shutting down that conversation entirely, treating objective facts as if they're somehow offensive. And it doesn't stop there. Maher raises an even more disturbing point. Children who aren't legally trusted to drive, vote, or buy alcohol are suddenly deemed mature enough to make permanent medical decisions that can leave lifelong consequences. Question that, and you're instantly branded an extremist. That's not progress. It's backwards. It's reckless. And it perfectly illustrates how ideology has replaced reason. Maher's message cuts through the noise. Ignoring biological truth and turning children into political symbols isn't compassion. It's dangerous delusion.
Asylum now covers any reason for anyone to come to America. Not doing it. Homelessness is a lifestyle. Natural immunity doesn't count anymore. Whiteness is toxic. This is in women's prisons. Welcoming the Intifada. We're not doing it.
Maher doubles down with a ruthless takedown of woke priorities the left desperately needs to abandon. None of this is complicated. In fact, dropping a few of these so-called sacred cows might actually help solve the very problems they claim to care about. Take homelessness. Instead of romanticizing it as a lifestyle choice or turning sidewalks into permanent encampments. Why not address the root causes? Get people off the streets, provide real housing, along with the support needed to confront addiction, mental illness, or financial collapse, the realities that put them there in the first place. That's what actual progress looks like. Leaving people to rot in tents on city sidewalks isn't compassion. It's cruelty dressed up as tolerance. And it doesn't just fail the homeless. It harms entire communities forced to live amid the breakdown and decay.
If we are ever going to get back to the old America, that's got to be the Democrats' part of the bargain. Stop coming up with radically new and often terrible ideas, and then in the next breath, insist there be no debate about any of it. That if you don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5. Isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say
Maher zeroes in on the woke mob, calling them out for relentlessly trying to force their worldview on everyone else. The message is simple and undeniable. Not everyone is going to think like them, live like them, or buy into the illusions they insist are truth, and that's perfectly fine. Pluralism used to be the point. Now, disagreement is treated like heresy. The real problem is that the woke left can't tolerate dissent. They don't argue. They demand submission. Total conformity is the goal. Meanwhile, most people remain grounded in reality. They care about society functioning, families thriving, and communities staying safe, not indulging every new identity crisis or fleeting fad dressed up as activism. Forcing people to participate in absurd social experiments isn't progress. It's authoritarianism disguised as compassion. Maher's point couldn't be clearer. If the left wants any credibility back, it has to stop dictating how everyone else should think, live, or speak. Freedom is about choice, not woke enforcement.
You can't just say math is racist, queers for Palestine, looting is cool, healthy at any weight. If the men's football team played the women's team, it would be a tie. You can't just say.
Bill hammers home a point that should be self-evident, yet somehow isn't to the woke left. You don't get to invent facts and expect society to fall in line. Facts aren't toys to be reshaped around ideology. They're grounded in reality, science, and logic. And they don't bend just because they offend feelings or clash with the latest fashionable narrative. Too often, the left retreats into an echo chamber where fantasy is repeated until it starts to feel true. Maher's message is simple. Step outside that bubble and confront the world as it actually exists, not as you wish it did. That's the only place where honest debate can happen and real solutions can take shape. The bottom line is straightforward. Progress cannot be built on delusion. When facts are ignored, reason collapses, and with it goes any hope of a functional, united society.
I mean, you can, but it doesn't make it true, because you're not Harry Potter. Smug self-righteousness in the defense of some of the dumbest ideas to ever come down the pike is not a formula that's really working for you. Because here's one thing I can promise every liberal in this country. The Democrats can win every election from now until forever. And the people who now hold the reins of power will not give a shit and will not give it back if they think you're still nutty.
I don't buy the claim that conservatives would refuse to relinquish power if liberals lost an election. That narrative doesn't hold up. Still, putting liberals back in charge remains a recipe for disaster. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. When liberals and their woke agenda take control, chaos isn't far behind. Policies that sound compassionate on paper collapse when they collide with reality. Virtue signaling replaces real problem solving. Symbolism overtakes substance, and a government driven by feelings instead of facts grabs the reins. If Americans want another round of that, fine, it's their choice. But let's not pretend the consequences are mysteried. We already lived through years of woke governance, and the results were anything but impressive. Soaring inflation, deepening division, nonstop culture wars, and institutions that emerged weaker, not stronger. That's the record. That's the legacy. Vote for woke leadership if you want. Just don't act surprised when the fallout hits, because it always does.
Let's make one last stab at a grand bargain between the two sides that hate each other so much. America used to do this all the time, make bargains, and I've suggested many myself, like you stop saying fetuses are the same as babies, and we'll stop saying trans women are the same as biological women. You stop saying alternative facts, and we'll stop saying my truth. You stop saying thoughts and prayers, and we'll stop with the land acknowledgement.
Hold on. Let's stop right there. One side of this debate is anchored in facts, while the other drifts on fantasy and wishful thinking. A fetus isn't some abstract idea or rhetorical device. It's a living organism with a developing brain, organs, and the clear potential for human life. Ending that life isn't merely a choice. It is the termination of a human existence. Full stop. That reality is in no way comparable to grown men claiming to be women and competing in women's sports. These two issues do not belong in the same universe, let alone the same argument. One is about protecting the most vulnerable form of human life. The other is about indulging identity-based illusions that directly undermine biology, fairness, and common sense. When Maher places these issues side by side, he misses the mark. Not every controversy carries the same moral or factual weight, and pretending they do only muddies the conversation. This comparison proves exactly why clear lines matter, because some debates are rooted in reality, and others simply aren't.
You admit there's no such thing as voter fraud, and we'll admit that getting a picture ID isn't really that hard to do. Stuff like that.
That's absolutely right. If America is ever going to regain its footing, both the left and the right will have to compromise. But here's the non-negotiable part. Those compromises cannot be built on lies, delusions, or politically convenient narratives. They have to be grounded in objective truth rooted in facts, logic, and reality. That is the only foundation strong enough to hold a nation together. When unity is built on flimsy, nonsensical claims just to keep the peace, we're not healing anything. We're deceiving ourselves. Falsehoods may smooth things over for a moment, but they're shallow, fragile, and guaranteed to collapse the moment they're challenged. Real unity doesn't come from indulging fantasies. It comes from standing together around enduring principles, science, reason, morality, and plain common sense. Without that anchor, America will continue to stumble through endless culture wars and self-inflicted divisions, trapped by ideas too weak to withstand reality. And that's where Maher's message lands. Blunt, uncomfortable, but necessary. A nation cannot survive on delusion. The left must abandon its woke fantasies. The right must confront its own contradictions. And both sides have to meet on the solid ground of facts, reason, and reality. If you found this breakdown worthwhile, hit the like button, subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one.